Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this episode, Rick and I visit the Three Sisters, backtrack to Lithgow to visit Hassan's Wall, then make our way to Oberon. Every day seems to be jam-packed with not only stunning scenery and amazing countryside, but full of European history. After we had set Gidget up at Blackheath, we made our way to Katoomba to check out the Three Sisters from Jameson Lookout. I had been here in the late 1970s and had wonderful memories of them, and I can honestly say that seeing them again was just as amazing as the first time I had been here. The Three Sisters are an unusual prominent rock formation located in the Blue Mountains on the north escarpment of the Jameson Valley that forms part of the Cox's River Canyon system near the town of Katoomba. The Jameson Valley stretches north-south from just outside Katoomba to the Mount Solitary Ridge, and in this direction it is approximately 4 kilometres long, and from west to east stretching from Narrow Neck Plateau to King's Tableland, approximately 10 kilometres wide. The Three Sisters were formed by land erosion around 200 million years ago during the Jurassic period, when the sandstone bog, the Blue Mountains, was eroded over time by wind, rain and rivers, causing the cliffs surrounding the valley to be slowly broken up. When the Blue Mountains were covered in seawater, the ocean carried large amounts of sediment that gradually sunk to the floor in crosswise layers. These layers later created rock beds. Then around 200 million years ago, volcanoes erupted through the coal, sandstone and shale layers, forming the ridges and the shape of the Three Sisters. Rick and I spent what was left of the afternoon wandering some of the walks built over 100 years ago along the top of the plateau, enjoying not only the views but the occasional bird life of the area. Of course, I got carried away with the flowers, the interesting rock formations, and the little native metal sculptures that were scattered along the path. We left the Three Sisters late afternoon and made our way back to Gidget. The following morning we made our way back through Lithgow, over Mount Victoria, stopping in at the charming 19th century historic Hartley village, set on the western edge of the Blue Mountains. What an amazing sight! This remarkable 1830s village, surrounded by serene pastures, was once an important staging post for horse-drawn carriages heading west to the goldfields, with much of the original settlement a perfectly preserved remnant of the colonial past, with 17 buildings telling the story of life and hardships in regional Australia. The Hartley Courthouse, a rare 1837 Greek Revival sandstone courthouse, was stunning. Inside we experienced court reenactments with audio and hologram and explored the original prison cells that held early convicts, infamous bushrangers and cattle thieves, and saw where they had scratched their names, their sentences and their crimes into the timber-lined walls. Inside the cells, with their bars and bolts still in position, it made us think about what it was like for those men used to roaming the country, locked up tight in this remote prison. The Hartley Court and Petty Sessions was officially closed in 1887. St Bernard's Presbytery, built in the late 1850s, was impressive. Set on the hillside overlooking the picturesque village, surrounded by cottage gardens and a heritage orchard, was once a home for the priests who held Mass at St Bernard's Church, and is now a private residence. Beside the cottage was the former St Bernard's Church, a beautiful pale sandstone building, built by local stonemason Alexander Binning, probably from a Gothic prototype, with the stonework completed in 1846, while the windows and altar were later additions. The sandstone altar was hand-tooled to look like marble. St Bernard's remained a parish church until the mid-1880s, when services were transferred to Lithgow. Old Corney's garage, built of timber and iron in 1945, was full of gold rush antiques. Beside the garage, the Rawson River Walk, a 1 kilometre loop that follows the rocky slope of the hillside as it drops towards the Let River, where an elevated boardwalk follows the pretty river to the remains of Rawson's hut, had our legs powering as we returned up the hill to the garage. We did enjoy the peacefulness of the location, even with the highway so close. The trees along the river seemed to minimise the noise, or maybe we were just enjoying the sight. The Farmers Inn, or what is today the Hartley Historic Site Visitor Centre, a late Georgian building constructed in about 1843 by John Finn as a family residence, provided us with additional information about the buildings and history of the village, as well as old photographs depicting the bustle of this little village in its heyday. The building, built of sandstock bricks and shingles, both of which can still be seen, was used as a presbytery by St Bernard's for a short time, and then became an inn between 1865 and 1895, hoping to capitalise on the needs of miners heading to the Turon goldfields. It was abandoned in 1895, but became an inn again in the 1920s. Ivy Cottage lies beyond the Farmers Inn, built in the 1850s by John Finn, and became the police magistrate's house. It is claimed that the magistrate, whose major job seemed to be dealing with drunks, disliked the idea of being located between the Farmers Inn and the Shamrock Inn, now a ruined, with an old timber roof and a log watering trough outside. The Shamrock Inn was built in 1841 for Patrick Phillips, but by 1856 it had become an inn specifically to cater for the miners who were travelling through Hartley on their way to the goldfields in Turon. I took a stroll up around the hill to a granite rock outcrop which holds great significance to the local Aboriginal community, with dreamy views over the valley and rolling hills. Overlooking the village gave me an insight into life beyond the mountains in the early years of the 19th century. It is hard to imagine that in the 1830s it was seen as a future major township lying just west of the Blue Mountains on the road to Bathurst and to the west, but was bypassed by the railway and very quickly declined in importance. After spending most of the morning enjoying the village, we then made our way through Lithgow to Hassan's Wall, believed to be the name given to the line of cliffs on the southern side of Lithgow, between Browns Gap and South Bowenfells, probably named by Governor Macquarie during his official tour over the Blue Mountains to Bathurst in April 1815, as it reminded him of when he was stationed in Hassan, India. The mountains there were called Hassan's Wall. Hassan's Wall Outlook is the highest scenic point in the Blue Mountains at approximately 1,100 metres above sea level, with panoramic views of the iconic peaks of Mount Wilson, Mount York, Mount Turana and Mount Blaxland, as well as the whole Hartley Valley below. To the south was the Canimbla and Megalong valleys and Mount Bindo at 1,363 metres. The reserve that surrounds the lookout, gazetted for public recreation in 1882, has grown in size over time to now cover an area of over 780 hectares, with spectacular cliff lines, pagoda rock formations and cool fern-filled gullies making up the reserve. The massive view was something. It certainly was impressive. We could spend hours just sitting watching the changing colours of Hassan's Wall, but we had other points of interest to check out today. I must admit I did get carried away with the stunning views from Hassan's Wall. On returning to Lithgow, Rick and I made our way to the Bowenfells gun emplacement. In the mountains around Lithgow there were 2 real anti-aircraft gun emplacements and another 3 dummy anti-aircraft gun emplacements that were used for the defence of the Lithgow Small Arms Factory that was unfortunately closed on our visit. The 2 stations in the area included 4 octagonal reinforced concrete gun emplacements for 3.7 heavy anti-aircraft guns arranged around a central reinforced concrete command bunker consisting of a square 3-level buildings connected to a smaller 2-level octagonal building. There were over 100 static anti-aircraft gun station sites for defence against air attack that were established in Australia during World War II, with the Lithgow heavy anti-aircraft gun stations and dummy stations in Bowenfels built from 1941 to 1942, the only sites located west of the Blue Mountains. What a morning! But our exploring was not finished for the day. From Lithgow we made our way back along the Princess Highway to the turnoff that would take us towards the Drenolan Caves, past Austin Quarry, through the rural localities of Lothar, Hampton and Duckmalloy, and the Million Acre Reserve on the corner of Oberon Road and Drenolan Caves Road that lies within the Hampton State Forest, before reaching Oberon. We were disappointed to see that Drenolan Caves were closed due to flood damage, but another adventure, maybe. The scenery was stunning, along the windy road past rolling hills, forest country and pretty creeks. We passed the Hampton Halfway Hotel Motel, an iconic fully renovated building that is ideally located halfway between the Blue Mountains and Drenolan Caves, established in 1863 and set on 18 acres of rural property, with fabulous valley views. Today, the building still retains some of its heritage, and the locals can provide many stories and interesting information about its history since the early days of horse-drawn carts in the 1863. The Hampton State Forest, the Million Acres, was established in 1970 to commemorate the millionth acre of radiate pine to be planted in Australia, and is located along the Drenolan Caves Road. It was such a beautiful scenic drive through spectacular rural high country, with its soft rolling hills and natural bush over 1,000 metres above sea level. We crossed the Duckmalloy River, a perennial stream that is part of the Macquarie catchment within the Murray-Darling Basin, located in the Central Tablelands region of New South Wales, rising on the western slopes of the Great Dividing Range and flowing gently to the north and then east, where it forms its confluence with the Fish River near Oberon. A small weir on the river called the Duckmalloy Weir forms part of the Fish River water supply scheme and was constructed during 1963 to supply water to Oberon and other town water supplies and the Wallarang and Mount Piper power stations. As we entered Oberon, nature seemed to rule, with its beautiful cool climate highlighted by the autumnal colour leaves peeping from the tree-lined streets. Oberon, unlike all the other towns in the Blue Mountains, being on the western extreme of the region, is essentially an agricultural and industrial centre, with the area around the town known for its prime lambs, beef cattle, vegetable production, tree nurseries, nut plantations, bulb farms and radiated pine plantations, while the timber industry, particularly timber milling and logging, being one of Oberon's biggest employees, it is the pine forests that give the town its European ambience. Oberon was originally known by the unromantic name of Bullock Flats until 1863, when it was officially proclaimed a village and a local woman suggested Oberon, the name of the king of the fairies in Shakespeare's A Midnight Summer's Dream, with the nearby village named Titania in 1904 after the queen of the fairies. The journey through the Blue Mountains passes through Mount Victoria and drops dramatically onto the western plains as it heads towards Lithgow. There are still small remnants of the road William Cox and convicts built to open up the west beyond the Blue Mountains. The most famous artefact is the Pass of Victoria, with its stone bridge built by convicts in 1832, which remains a monument to the engineering talent of the early road builders. Sadly, it is almost impossible to stop and inspect the construction as you roar up and down the escarpment. Still, it is easy to locate as the road, now widened, suddenly narrows to the original bridge. After having lunch in Oberon, we made our way back past Mount Blaxland, on the western end of where the first crossing of the Blue Mountains in May 1813 occurred, to the Princess Highway, crossing Mount Victoria Pass again and on to Blackheath. The following day, after an early start, we made our way to Wentworth Falls Lookout with its panoramic escarpment views and the stunning 297-metre waterfall as it flows into the valley below. We took a short but steep walk, descending around 200 steps to the cliff edge at Fletcher's Lookout that gave us a marvellous view of the falls as it plunged the last 100 metres to the valley floor. From there we continued down a few more steps to the very top of the falls, where the Jameson Creek cascades into a shallow pool to one side and the majestic Jameson Valley opens out on the other. Here the Jameson Creek drops over the escarpment and plunges 297 metres over the upper and lower falls into a large pool before flowing down the creek as it weaves its way into the Valley of the Waters. We took in the exhilarating views and marvelled at the incredible feat of engineering along the track before returning to the picnic area near the car park. English naturalist, geologist and biologist Charles Darwin was quite smitten with this part of the Blue Mountains when he visited in 1836, and after climbing lots and lots of stairs down and back up the walking track clipped into the side of the cliff from the falls, I can certainly see why. It really was a magical place, not just for the incredible views, but the lush greenery teeming with life. We visited the Blue Mountains with its soaring sandstone ridges covered in native bushlands late afternoon and early morning, and both times the views were stunning. The fresh morning air added a crispness to the beauty of the valleys and craggy cliffs. Even the smoke haze heightened the views. Even now, as I put this episode together, I marvel at the enormous views, the colours of the cliff faces and the various greens of the valley below. It really was impressive. I will leave you for this episode as we make our way back through Katoomba with its main street lined with Art Deco buildings to Scenic World and the Katoomba Falls. But that will be for the next episode, where I take the scenic skyway that glides between the cliff tops, take a scenic gondola ride, and then, to top it off, ride the world's steepest passenger railway for the most terrifying ride of my life. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Stay safe and enjoy life. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.